As you're, I'm sure aware, Pastor Nate has been talking with us the last few weeks about James, the book of James in the New Testament. And James has a little bit different take than the other apostles do. And his words are very interesting, but today they may be a little hard to hear for some of us, maybe just me, but some of us. So I would invite you to gather our hearts and minds together as we hear the word of the Lord. Not many of you should be teachers, my brothers and sisters, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For all of us make many mistakes. Anyone who makes no mistakes in speaking is perfect, able to keep the whole body in check with a bridle. If we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey, we guide their whole bodies. Or look at ships, though they are so large that it takes strong winds to drive them, yet they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great exploits. How great is the forest! It is set ablaze by a small fire, and the tongue is a fire. The tongue is placed among our members as a world of iniquity. It stains the whole body, sets on fire the cycle of nature, and is itself set on fire by hell. For every species of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by the human species, but no one can tame the tongue, a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless the Lord and Father, and with it we curse those who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come the blessing and the curse. My brothers and sisters, this ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and brackish water? Can a fig tree, my brothers and sisters, yield olives, or a grape tree figs? No more can salt water yield fresh. May God bless the readings of his word.
Thank you, Sandy. Some of you may know this, and maybe some of you caught this already. Sandy has been joining us the last several months here. She's a recently retired Methodist pastor, and she's found a welcome here, and I'm really glad of that. Thank you, Sandy, for sharing our reading for this morning. So we are in these fall months. We're spending 14 weeks together. 14 weeks. Everybody say, "Whoa! 14 weeks! Holy cow! 14 weeks! 14 weeks together!" Yeah. We're spending 14 weeks together, walking through the letter of James. James, this familiar leader who writes a letter to 12 churches that have been dispersed outside of Jerusalem. Writing a letter of encouragement, writing a letter of instruction, writing a letter of admonition too. And right in the middle of this letter of James comes this really difficult reading, difficult teaching about the power of the tongue. Right in the middle. So we're in week 7 right now of a 14-week series. And it's appropriate for us to think about this as kind of like halftime, okay? This is a little bit like halftime. And at halftime is the time when we think back, what are the things that are working? What are the things that are not working? Okay? For those of you that are golfers, we're at the turn, okay? And maybe we need to reevaluate and we say, I need to shorten my swing, whatever it is, right? I don't know. That's about as much as I know. So we're at halftime, and it's important for us in these moments to take a look at what's working and what's not. And I want to encourage you to think about in your life. And maybe you're far past halftime. Maybe halftime is far along. But in this moment today, on this Sunday, for us to take a moment and to analyze and to wonder, what are the things that are working in our world right now? And what are the things that are not working right now in our world? Which really leads us to a really wonderful spot when we think about this text and this theme for this week, speaking life into each other, speaking life into each other. What does that look like for us to speak life? To be people who share words of encouragement, to be people who speak words of joy, to be people who speak words of peace and forgiveness and love into a world that sometimes just thrives on division. Our words, your words and my words, your words carry an incredible weight and an incredible amount of power. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, there are 171,146 words in use in the English language today. 171,146. That's a lot of words, right? And at least according to the Oxford English Dictionary, there's about 41,000 words that have become obsolete, right? Words that we don't use so much anymore. And according to a lot of self-help folks, there's a pretty common statistic that is cited that among men and women, men typically use about 7,000 words each day. Men typically use about 7,000 words each day. And now, if men, you take a guess at this, maybe some of you know this, and maybe some of you can't count it. But if men use 7,000 words each day, how many words do you think women typically use each day? It's more than double.
20,000.
14,000. What did you say? Did you say 20? Yes. Evan, you get the prize for today. 20,000, and at least according to lots of different self-help authors, would say that women use almost 20,000 words. Now, I know this, my sermons are normally between 5,000 and 7,000 words, so after 2 services in the afternoon, I'm done, which means from noon till about 3 o'clock today. I'll be focused on the green and gold. The words that we use, the words that we utter, the words that we whisper, the words that we share, and I also want to make this connection. The words that we read, the words that we go to, the words that we consume, they have power, incredible power. And I want us to think really today, kind of at halftime of this sermon series, right in the middle of the book of James, what kinds of words we're consuming and what kinds of words we're using. And are those words indeed speaking life, or perhaps not? Okay. Some of you become well aware. This whistleblower last week, or week before, came out and kind of disclosed this information that social media company, pretty popular social media company, thrives on division and hate. This is not surprising, right? But I want us to think about, when we think about our tongue, which is what James is encouraging us to think about, but I also want us to think about the words that we share and the words that we consume. And that in particular has to do with social media. At least according to Pew Research back in April of 2021, somewhere around this percentage of people use one of the online social media platforms. About 81% of U.S. adults find themselves in 2021 using YouTube, but 69% using Facebook, 40% using Instagram. That percentage is way higher amongst millennials and younger generations, but of you as adults, we have to pay attention to both the words that we use and the words that we consume. Okay? The words that we read, the words that we go to. Our words, your words, my words, they matter. They are of importance. The tongue is a powerful tool. Tongue is a powerful tool. This is the next one there. A few short years ago, I'll share this story with you. A few short years ago, I had somebody come into my office, and they were mad. You've had this experience, some of you? Somebody comes into your space, and they got something that they need to get off their chest. They were mad. And I can remember sitting there several years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, and one, just being so surprised by that moment. And two, so very, very sad that this person who I love, a person that I did not intend to harm, I had really upset that person. And they needed to come in and vent their frustration. And let me tell you, vent they did. It was one of those moments where they let me have it, right? Now, I share this story with you because this last week, Thursday afternoon, I found myself in that person's living room. And just offhandedly, we were talking, we were visiting, it was a wonderful conversation. And I looked at this person and I said, do you remember that time when you came into my office? You were so angry at me. Do you remember that? And she looked at me and she said, I sure do. and they said, I was really, really angry. And I don't have a memory of how we necessarily worked through that. But as I was sitting in that person's living room, I told them, I said, I am so thankful that we got through that moment, that pinch point where they were angry. I was really sad that they were angry. I remember feeling that. I don't remember how we got through it, but we didn't stop our relationship over it, right? And so often, that's our response in this world. Somebody says something, somebody does something that we don't like, and immediately it's like we're done. We're moving on to the next thing, or the next person, or the next institution, or whatever the thing is. And I just share that story to say, we need to do better at investing in relationships one to another. I don't remember exactly how we worked through that thing, but I do know this. I am so thankful that we did. We continued sharing words one to another. And I'm sure that at one point, and perhaps many different times in response to this person coming in my office really quite mad, I know that I said what I think are two of the most powerful words in the English language, of the 171,146. Two of the most powerful words in the English language, I believe, are these words: I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Would you, some of you know your neighbor, some of you don't, would you turn to a neighbor? I don't care if you know them or not. Just turn to them and say these words: I'm sorry. Find a neighbor and say, I'm sorry. Now some of you really needed to say that. Some of you really needed to say that to one another. And some of you, this is the first time you've met this person who you're now apologizing to. It's like, right? But I do believe that some of the most powerful words in the English language are simply these words: I'm sorry. There are many times when we intentionally hurt people, and there are an awful lot of times when we don't intentionally mess up. Practice those words. I'm sorry. I know that sometimes it feels weird to turn to somebody and say, I'm sorry. And as messengers of God who speak life into each other, I want you to get used to saying those words. I'm sorry. The other thing that I would encourage you to, and just practice this with me, turn to a neighbor and say, you are loved. Just turn to your neighbor and say, "You are loved." Now, this one might feel a little weirder, especially if you don't know them. But whoa, is it important? Wow, is it important to know? To know, one, that yes, sometimes we have been wronged, and that we are loved. Now, it's important for us to know that we are loved because of where we're sitting right now. We're sitting in a sanctuary, which I reminded the confirmation students. I said, "Hey, what's really prominent in this room?" I said, "What's in the front of this room? What's in the back of this room?" And they looked for a while and they said, "I don't know," because they're confirmation students. And then they said, "Oh, there's crosses at the front and then there's a big cross there. There's a big cross there." Right? It's important for us to know that we're loved. Yes, by other people, but most importantly by the love of Jesus Christ. By the love of God demonstrated for us in Jesus Christ and on and at the cross. That cross of Calvary is, after all, it's not a heart symbol. It's not a really lovely symbol. It's this institutional form of crucifixion, tool of crucifixion that was turned into a symbol of love. And I want to invite you today to turn your tongue into a tool of love. Our confirmation students, they're studying the 10 Commandments right now, learning the 10 Commandments. And we are first go at our first lesson for this unit of the 10 Commandments. Last week, we just walked through what are the 10 Commandments, where do they come from, the story in Exodus 20 of these people who are wandering around in the wilderness, and Moses goes up to a mountain, Mount Sinai, and God gives these instructions for living. I asked the students, now it's not to say that any one of those 10 commandments is more important or less important than the others, but I asked the students this last week to focus on the 8th commandment. I printed the 8th commandment in your bulletin, on the back side of your bulletin. The 8th commandment, if you would, it's on the screens, it's in your bulletin. Just read this aloud with me. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. What does that mean? You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Right? And sometimes we ask the confirmation, so what do you think that means? And really we got down to this idea, don't spread rumors. That was the impression of our confirmation students. I want to also, and for some of you this might be news to you, but Martin Luther wrote a small catechism, words of instruction for families to teach their kids about Jesus, and he wrote an explanation to this 8th commandment. Okay, and the explanation to this 8th commandment is this. The first is pretty standard. I really want to focus on the second line or the second sentence, but first sentence is this: we are fearing about God, so that we do not tell lies about our neighbors, betray or slander them, or destroy their reputations. Right? Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. Don't, in confirmations, that don't spread rumors. This is hard. This is a hard instruction. Instead, think of your neighbors. Instead, we are to come to their defense, speak well of them, and interpret everything they do in the best possible light. Interpret our neighbor's actions in the best possible light. Now, some of you are thinking about your geographic neighbors, literally the people who live to the left and the right of your home, right? Across the street from your home. What does this mean in a social media world, or a social media age? How do we, as people of God, think about, yes, the tongue, but the words that we speak and the words that we consume, are they building and speaking life into others or not? Your words matter. Your words and my words, they matter. And the tongue it's a powerful tool. The tongue is a powerful tool. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. I'm in the midst of about 17 different home repair projects. at my house, I think, or 18 maybe. And I don't know about you. I am famous or infamous, probably infamous in this way. I'm pretty good at starting projects, and not always so great at bringing them to completion. Right? Often, you just go to the next slide. Often, what that means is that in my home, I have, oh, not that one. Just go to the graphic. Whatever. I'm not done speaking yet. Did some of you just grow? I have many different home repair projects at home. I jump from one project to the next, and so often what that means is I put my tools down, I put them in a bucket, or I put them in a box, and I put them on a shelf somewhere, and then I move on to the next thing. And then when I'm invited to complete the project that isn't completed yet, right? Often what that means is that I can't find the tools that I need, right? This is familiar to some of you? Can't quite find the tools that you need? You have a tool that can do incredible good, and it can do incredible damage in this world. That tool that you have is right in front of you. It's right in front of you. How will you use that tool for good and to speak life into this world? Our last thing, then John, we'll move on. Our faithful custodian has, in the last several weeks, he's taken upon himself to wash the outside of the church. Right? You know, it's a good thing to do. Dust and dirt.